In a recent video, I went into the primal in history and why it's important to you on the sinister path. But there's another aspect of the primal. That's the primal in the psyche. And I was asked, what does that mean? Well, first off, none of this matters if you want to practice the occult sciences from a superficial level, if you want to stay on the surface, use your grimoires like you would cookbooks, then it's unnecessary to go deep. It's common to ignore history, psychology, the how and the why. It's easier to blindly accept if no meaningful questions are ever asked or answered. But if you want a better understanding of it all, if you want this philosophy to truly enrich your life, then understanding the basics, the primordial basics, is important. But how is this done? You do it through communing with the ancestors, by partaking in myth and ritual, and by connecting with the gods, which is something most here in the Western world don't do. The gods, those masks of the archetype, have been neglected to such a degree it's wreaking havoc not only on our personal psyches, but with society at large. But you may say, I don't believe in the gods. Really? People who say that don't know what the gods are. The gods are primordial aspects of being, psychic energies connected to the collective unconscious that cannot be fully rationalized. They are not sitting in Asgard or on Mount Olympus. Asgard and Olympus are states of mind. And if you're lucky, you can have a Valhalla state of mind. The gods are in you, outside you. They can be the wind at your back, or they can be pulling your leash. It's up to you. As primordial forces, most gods existed long before humans stood upright. Inherent entities within the primitive minds of our earliest ancestors, creatures long extinct. And in the psyche of our earliest human ancestors, symbology became important, very important, for as doorways to the transcendent, it allowed them to connect with the gods. For many hundreds of thousands of years, humankind led lives deep with symbolic meaning. It wasn't until recently that we pulled away from that, at least we here in the Western world. The gods were and are everywhere and in everything. The Hindus know this. They don't hold that Western perspective of the gods. They understand what they truly are. Now, many of my theistic friends see the gods and monsters, angels and demons, as forces or currents that wear different masks to appease the different cultures. But if you believe, let's say, Satan is an anthropomorphic being with a red suit and horns sitting on a throne in hell, go back to the church, because Yahweh still has a hold of you. Now, in truth, you're still in the church, trying to gaze out that stained glass window, which is hard to see out of. You think you've made a connection with what's outside, beyond, but you haven't. Let that shit go. But how, you may ask? How do I do that? By going deep into the primal. Because if you have an understanding of the roots, it's hard to believe the contemporary perspective. From the time of the communal fires of our Paleolithic ancestors to the temples of the Abrahamists, the gods have fed the psyche, giving an understanding not of the physical world. That's where most people screw up when it comes to the gods, but to the inner world, or the underworld. And there, deep in the underworld, we find the core of the self. This goes beyond good and evil, or what we understand as good and evil. Before the invention of sin, those shackles of Judeo-Christian society placed upon us. Before the invention of duality, before Zoroaster cleaved the god in two, calling the light half Uhura Mazda and the dark Ahriman, which created a divide in the psyche. But as you venture into the depths, into the underworld, you'll need to accept the fact that this is a path of destruction. Blissful destruction, for creation comes through force, through destruction of the old notions, conditioning, and programming. That's what Shiva symbolizes, the destruction of the old to bring about the new. There are many mythological gods and entities on the left-hand path, and Lord Shiva is but one. Though not always viewed from the perspective of the left-hand path, he is, in many ways, the greatest of these deities. Shiva, along with Brahma and Vishnu, is 1/3 of the holy trinity of Hinduism called the Primordial. A deity of great complexity, he is often represented as a lord of love, light, and protection, but we emphasize his darkness. For Shiva the Destroyer is the leader of evil spirits, ghosts, and vampires, the master of thieves and villains. He destroys the universe at the end of each cycle, which then allows for a new creation. Do you get the symbology? His destruction has a positive side because destruction leads to a greater form of existence. This is destruction of the old and stagnant, for you cannot have rebirth without the death of the old. Shiva, the Destroyer, is the ultimate adversary, adversarial to those aspects of the self that keep one from progressing upon the path. And Shiva and the other beings of a mythological nature are to be experienced within the soul's psyche as meaningful poetry of the subconscious. But some of you Satanists may say, I'm already self-deified. Why do I need this Hindu Shiva crap? You're not understanding that self-deification is not a proclamation, it is a process. I've said this over and over. For only a fool will announce to the world that they are a god when they don't know what the fuck a god is. Self-deification is a bitch to achieve, and once you've entered that state, you have to work to maintain it. You're in a relationship with the deified self, and like any relationship, it takes work. A single slip up and it can set you back. This is why it's imperative to have a head full of knowledge while going down the path to self-deification or sinister illumination. Now, sinister illumination, what's that? It's restoring that dark half of the psyche, that half missing in the hearts and minds of the Abrahamists. The dark half of the God in you, the dark half of the divine, That half of you that's been called Satan or satanic. That's why you can never reach divinity on the right-hand path. It's because you can never be whole on that path. It's the path of subservience and submission. The dark half of you is shunned, and you are made to believe that you need to be protected from it. Fear it. That's how they get you. That's how they trap you. And that's how they keep you submissive. So, in conclusion, connecting with the primal is going into the underworld, into the primordial core of being, thus psychologically obtaining truth by stripping the psyche down to its bare essence. To put it simply, we're reconnecting with who we once were, because that part of us is still there, sleeping deep inside. It's time to wake it up.